Hello, 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 and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Jameelah, and I am a master manifester, and I'm sure you are too because you're watching content like this. The name of this channel is Holistic Manifesting because I believe in whole body, whole mind, and whole being experience when it comes to manifesting these amazing lives that we're choosing, right? What I'm discussing today is... Fix that. Maybe that'll work. What I'm discussing today is 3 books that I came across in my life that truly leveled me up. You know how people talk about those pivotal moments that they experience at different times in their lives? And a lot of times it's incidents, and I've had those too. There's like people that I've come across, there's occurrences. But when I think about the books, right? And these came from different places. So the first one I'll talk about, As a Man Thinketh, right? By James Allen. This one was always in my house growing up. This one was in like this basket my mom used to have in the main bathroom where there was just a bunch of little books there. I remember another one was Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and it's all small stuff. But this one right here, it was a tiny version. It was yellow, and it was a smaller version of this exact book. And I remember just looking through it every now and then when I would get a chance. But when I was going to school and working on my bachelor's degree somewhere in my very early 20s, I remember reading the whole book, right? And at the time, I didn't think too much into anything that was happening inside the book, because I think that when your life is not tested yet, when you don't really have wisdom in certain areas, when you haven't really been put, your feet haven't been put to the fire yet, information just kind of comes in and goes out. My daughters tell me that all the time. They're just like, thank you for all the good information that we don't know how to use quite yet. But nonetheless, the information is getting in there, and that's why it's so important too. And I grew up in a house with a lot of books always around. I don't know if I mentioned this before. My parents were Muslim, so I grew up in Islam, not the Nation of Islam, which is very different, but I grew up in Islam. And so there was always this idea of you should be talking about knowledge. There was like, imams playing in the background growing up. There was always some philosophy being discussed in some degree and somewhere. And I think sometimes some people just latch on to that kind of stuff a lot more than others. But I was one of those people where I was always looking for a little knowledge, a little wisdom, but I didn't necessarily have a place to completely use it, right? As a Man Thinketh was one of those books that helped me as my life moved forward to sort of organize myself in a way that I was responsible for everything that I was going through. I was responsible for my output. I was responsible for my results. I was responsible for the people that I was attracting into my life. So even when I didn't fully understand those concepts, listening to that book and then like reading that book really made me understand that. And I think about being early on divorced. That was like the first time I actually picked it up again, and everything in it was so real. I was like, oh my goodness. So when I say leveling up in my 20s, I didn't necessarily know how to apply the information yet because life just hadn't happened. Life wasn't lifing yet, right? And so as things were going forward, I always had something to draw back on. That's why it's so important to latch on to this information as early as possible, because then when you do get into those kerfuffles, we'll call it that, you'll know what type of information to latch on to and what might be most beneficial, because whether you know it or not, it's still going to be a part of your subconscious mind and your subconscious thinking. Another book has been The Science of Getting Rich. Now, this is my favorite. This is the one I hold completely dear. I got this one from my brother. My older brother gave me this book a long time ago. He was really into Bob Proctor at the time, and I remember he met him in person and took some pictures with him. And Bob Proctor had done the foreword for this particular version of The Science of Getting Rich. And I feel like it's the same one he gave me because all the pages are falling out. Like, I'm kind of sure about that. And it has like a bunch of stuff written on it. So I'm thinking it's the same one he gave me way back in the day. But I remember reading this book, and then there's a mantra that's spoken inside of it. There's a thinking stuff from which all things are made, in this, I've forgotten it since. Anything that is thought about, impressed upon this space can be created in real life. And I remember hearing that phrase at the end of every book. He would add on a sentence at the beginning of the book, and he's adding more and more. Then it keeps on saying, repeat this phrase over and over again until it gets into your subconscious mind, right? Wallace D. Wattles. And it was written in like the 1920s. So it's an older text. It was just revised like in the late 80s, early 90s or whatever. And so I remember repeating this mantra so much, and it was almost like it was magical to me. And I was like, so like, there's like nothing that can be created and nothing destroyed. Like, we live on this planet and it has the same organic material that's been here since the beginning of time, right? And I was like, so that means that everything that you create and everything that you eventually have is something that's recycled and that's been already, and you're just drawing things into your space. So there's nothing new. And so I was always thinking that how like, it's like magic, like things just come together and they create what you want. Like if you look at the home that I live in today, say, and like the furniture inside of it, the materials inside of it, everything that comes together to make this cozy space that I love and I love to spend a lot of time in, it's all like if you had a magnet and you held the magnet up and all those things were just being attracted into my life, and then it came and showed up in a form to where it's usable and it's something enjoyable, right? That might be a little bit too, woo-woo for some people, but that is just how my mind actually works. And so this book kind of brought that to life to me. It's like, man, I was like, there's a science to the way that these things operate. It's not just by chance. It's not like, I grew up on people saying the phrase a lot, if it's for you, it's for you. And I was like, I don't know about that. It never sat right with me growing up. I was like, that sounds like you're not trying. If it's for you, it's for you. And I'm not saying that everything you want is for you, but I do know that if we are really specific in our desires, if we truly believe in the experience of enjoying this life and benefiting others and creating something that's substantial that other people can latch on to, if we're dedicated to teaching others and growing and all that sort of thing, that we can have those things in life. It may not show up in the package that you think it's going to be, but it will be there for you. And my little girls, of course, in the backseat of the car, and all my days, I call them my hustling days, where they were coming to classes with me that I was taking and coming to classes with me that I was teaching. And they were just little people in the back seat, and they knew this mantra with me. There's a thinking stuff from which all things are made, in which, in its original form, penetrates and permeates the inner spaces of the universe. Yes, that's how it goes. And if I start repeating that now, they will latch on to it and laugh because they remember it very well. And they may not have a place to put it in right now, but that information is in their subconscious mind. And this is one that I hold super dear, right? Super dear. And then the last one, of course, it's a fan favorite, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. And I've had like 4 copies of this book over time. I had an older sibling. Well, actually, my brother gave this one to me also too, right? I always thank him for introducing me to so many of these concepts. I got one from another older sibling, and they were like, they couldn't get past the language because it was kind of like old school, and it might have had a racial tone to it in one of the original texts. And I was like, but what about the content? And so that made me want to dig. I was like, well, what's in there though, right? Of course, it gives you that insight on the way people see the world and like those specific types of people and how they think, what they do. And I think that you can't be in this type of space without understanding Napoleon Hill's way and understanding how he operates. And just the other day, I was watching some older videos about Napoleon Hill. And I love how he, starts the video. He's like, how do you do? And he just goes on into this very deep, ethereal approach to life. And it was in like the 1940s or whatever. And I'm like, people were listening to him, but they were large crowds, right? And I remember one sentence that he said in one of his speeches, and there was an audience, and he was just like, man should not think about what another man believes of him. And the whole audience got up and roared, right? And I'm just like, that's like basic information to us today, but we still don't take that in fully. You cannot create and be and enjoy and do this life the way you want to if you are always thinking about what other people are going to think of you at the end of the day. You will never create what you truly want if you're always worried about whether someone will approve of it or disapprove of it. You got to be willing to be in your own lane, and you got to be willing to keep on going. And like, this is one of those books that really showed me that, because these people that were interviewed in this book, they faced so much opposition at different times. And if you allow that to sort of curtail your life or like to change your focus, then you'll be nowhere but be a crab right back at the bottom of that bucket. You know what I mean? So I always loved Think and Grow Rich because it was my practical guide. It was more of a practical approach to how do I make these things happen? How do I create a life that I want to live, right? And so I look at these books and I think about, the person that was into these books before I even had the opportunity to apply them fully in my 20s. And that's why I look back and I can't even be mad about like my marriage and like ex-husband, because to me, when I started going down the road of like, this is what I want to create, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to be, this is what I want to have, this is my vision board, the universe is going to start bringing the people and places and things that need to refine you in order for you to get to the place that you're trying to get to. So that's why I never have like these regrets about being with my children's father, my ex-husband, because I know that I was drawn to that environment. I was drawn into that space because I needed to be refined for who I am today. Like we were both vessels for each other's eventual evolution, Now, hey, if you don't use me for evolution, that's up to you. But I'm definitely always looking at other people as vessels for evolution. And sometimes it's a positive evolution and they can stay in your space and you continue to grow and form a bond together and it goes on and on. And then sometimes that eventual evolution will cause you to split, right? It will cause you to go in different directions. But I always know that nothing is by mistake in those instances because I know that I'm always working on the greater good. What is the best outcome? What is the best thing that can happen in this situation? What is the trajectory of the lifestyle or the life or the people that I want to be connected to or the life I'm trying to create, right? What is the type of experience? What are the type of experiences that I want to have? And so when I look back on those things, when I really had to dig deep into these types of books to kind of like keep organizing my life, it was because I come into the pieces of my life where it was now time to put up or show up. You know what I mean? So it's like, hey, you're in a bad marriage. This is not working. This has got a lot of negative energy, negative this and that. And what kind of children do you want to raise? Do you want to raise them in a household that's going to be like this or that? Or do you want to raise them to where they're strong, independent thinkers? They're smart. They can handle life. They can be productive citizens. They can develop and create things themselves that can benefit others. What do you want to create? Do you see that being possible in this particular connection, in this environment? And when you come to terms with that kind of stuff, then you have to break free. And so these sort of books and this type of information is how I was able to break free without feeling bogged down by my decisions, right? Because you already know when it's time to break free from particular situations and circumstances, you're not going to always experience the light and fluffiness of it, right? And so that's why you can look online and see people in certain relationships and smiling and happy and blah, blah, blah. And then the next week they're announcing a divorce. And you're like, but all they ever posted was fluffiness and happiness, because you can't necessarily take all that stuff for face value. You know that when it comes down to really learning and really achieving and really expanding in life, there's going to be some discontentment that's going to happen there. And when people are only showing you a positive, pretty picture of their life and their experiences, you got to know that either they're going to be doing the work eventually, or either it's just going to be a mediocre thing that they're just, pretending like that it's more than what it actually is, right? That's why I never get online and get, sad about, oh, I wish I would have had the 2-parent home. I wish I would have had. Of course, we all do. We all wish we would have had that set up and created that environment for our families and our kids. But you have to have a positive attitude towards yourself to know that you are not the only one that started off in the wrong environment. You're not the only one that started off with the wrong type of mate for the life that you wanted to create. But some people don't step out of it. They don't walk away from it because what's on the other side is too daunting, right? And so for me to do that would actually, what they say, without a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. I mean, literally nothing. And to rebuild and look back at those times and where I'm at today as far as my mindset, it was held in this information. That's why we can never think that what we're sharing and what we're doing is of no consequence. So that's why I get on here and I make these videos and I enjoy it, but it's of great consequence, because I'm like, you never know who needs to hear that. If they're 25 years old, I'm like, pick up these books, read them. You may not be able to apply them yet, but once you start working towards that space, you're going to be challenged in those deep and meaningful ways, because you need to be refined in order to be something that's valuable enough to share with other people, right? And if you think about yourself in earlier times, like the way my mindset worked and the way that I was in my early 20s, I couldn't be used for anything. Nah, I was a brat. I'm the youngest of 6 kids. I was a brat. And my number one tool was anger and aggravation. That's how I pushed things around and I pushed people around. That was my mindset. It wasn't that I was trying to do these things. I was on autopilot and I had witnessed it in my own household. And I thought, hey, getting angry and yelling at people and telling them what you want and how you want it to be done is the way to go, right? But I knew that it wasn't working for me. I knew there's something that you inherently know at different points in your life, like this is not going to work forever. And when I tell you, that wasn't an easy one to shake. That whole having a fit every time something didn't go the way you wanted it to go, that wasn't an easy one to shake. That's why I'm a firm believer when people say you can't change this. If you struggle with this, you're going to struggle for the rest of your life. No, you will not. If you put that work in, and if you do the hard work of the shame of coming to terms with who you are and look yourself in the mirror and say, you can't operate like this, because if you keep operating like this, your kids are going to be like this. And then their kids it's going to keep on going. You can put a stop to this stuff. You can get better. And so when it comes to what do I need to do, you got to not play games with yourself, right? You got to take life a little bit serious. I know some people think it's a benefit to say, I don't take life seriously. I don't appreciate that approach, because it's not that you shouldn't be, get in a hoopla about everything that goes on. But this is your life. This is what you're experiencing. This is your one time here. This is your opportunity to make an impact, if you want to, on the people and places around you. And it does create a better existence for yourself. It creates a better life for yourself. So when you are stumped and this is like, oh, what do I do? Don't sit there and argue for your limitations and argue for what won't work. Pick up these books and see how people that are just like you have used this information that's as old as time itself, and created the life that they choose and created the experiences that they choose, right? It's worth it. And whether you get to do it with a whole bunch of people cheering you on or you have to do it in solitude, it's always, always worth it. Right? So anyway, these are the little gems that I used to, and there's been so many books since then. I mean, come on, there's been so many that I've read, but these are the ones that stand out the most to me. They're the ones that I love. And I love As a Man Thinketh, because, man, it's just like, man, get your lazy self and your lazy mind out of this nonsense. Develop yourself, get up in the morning, commit to the best version of yourself, be what you need to be your greatest version. And like As a Man Thinketh doesn't pull any punches. This is like, hey, get it. You know what I mean? And then the science of getting rich is one of those things. It's like, it's magical to me. It's one of those very magical things. It's like, if you can see it, you can achieve it, you can be it. It's very magical. And then Think and Grow Rich, that's my practical approach. It's like, sit down and make that list of the things you want to accomplish. Contact those people, make those phone calls. Napoleon Hill was very, very good at the practical approach to creating the lives that we are choosing, right? How to manifest those beautiful things. And not just for ourselves, for all the people that's around us, for the people that we're connected to, right? Anyway, I hope you all are having a wonderful, wonderful day. And I didn't go on too long about this. No, I think that's pretty good. And so, yeah, what are those 3 books? What are those 3, 5, 4, 5 or whatever? What are those books that leveled you up in a different time in your life? And, think about how that subconscious information, like you took it in, and then how you applied it later on into your life. And it gives you more fuel and more excitement to keep on building and growing and, and advancing and being. And, you won't be walking around trying to think, how can I change myself to fit this mold? How can I change myself to fit that? How can I be, you won't be doing all that. You'll be like, how can I be the best version of me? And then meet people who are happy with that version of me, right? And meet environments that are happy with that version of me, because it's out there. I've done corporate work and everything, and people are like, corporate is awful. But I've been in corporate environments to where they took me as I was, and it was a joyful experience, and it was a loving experience. And I'm like, hey, this is not what people say about corporate, but it didn't have anything to do with them. It was about what I created. In every environment you go into, you have a possibility or an opportunity to create. So what are you creating with the information you have? And if you don't have enough information, go get some more information. These books are a great place to start. Anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day.